There is a shadow in the galaxy that even the Inquisition dares not name. A presence that moves through fire and ruin, untouched by time, unseen by fate. Worlds fall silent in his wake. Secrets unravel. History trembles. And somewhere in the darkness, he walks, hooded, armored, anonymous. He carries a blade forged at the dawn of the Imperium, a weapon no living man should bear. Some call him a traitor, others a savior, but all know him by a single name, Cipher. He was once a warrior of honor, a son of the First Legion, a dark angel, but the fires of betrayal are never clean, and from the ashes of his chapter's shame, Cipher emerged as a ghost, neither loyalist nor heretic, bound to no banner, serving no lord. He walks a path of exile not for redemption, not for vengeance, but for something far older, something only he remembers, or perhaps something even he is trying to forget. The tale of Cipher is a web spun through time itself. To understand him, one must go back to the days before the Imperium's golden lie shattered, before Horus fell, before the Great Betrayal, back to Caliban, a world of forests and beasts and secret wars. There, the Dark Angels were born, warriors clad in green, led by the pre-March Lionel Johnson. But even then, in those early days, there was a fracture in the soul of the Legion, a crack buried beneath loyalty and discipline. The Order was their name before they took the stars. Knightly traditions, oaths of brotherhood, and a code older than Terra herself. Among them walked two men, side by side. One was the Lion, the future pre-March, the destined warlord. The other, a man whose name is now lost to time, but whose title would echo for 10,000 years. The Lord Cipher. Not a name, but a role. Keeper of secrets, bearer of the deepest truths. The one who knew the sins that must never be spoken aloud. When the Dark Angels took to the stars, they brought with them the nobility of Caliban and the silent poison of division. And when they returned after years of war, they found their homeworld changed. The seeds of rebellion had been sown. The Lion's absence had opened the door to corruption, ambition, and resentment. The great heresy split the galaxy, but it also split the Dark Angels. And when the warp storms cleared, Caliban was gone, destroyed. A civil war buried beneath a manufactured silence. Officially, there was no treachery, no betrayal, just a world lost to madness and misfortune. But Cipher knew the truth. He had seen what the others could not, that the wound within the Dark Angels was not a sudden gash, but a slow infection, that the fall of Caliban was not just a tragedy, it was the punishment for lies left to fester. And so, when the war ended and the Imperium licked its wounds, Cipher vanished into myth, a single figure fleeing a dying world, carrying a sword older than any chapter and a purpose none could name. For 10,000 years, he has wandered. He is seen in the Eye of Terror, then on Terra, then in the Segmentum Obscurus, always at the edge of great events, never staying long, never speaking much. He appears before Inquisitors on the brink of uncovering too much. He stands beside Chaos Lords, only to vanish before the demon fire falls. He walks into the vaults of ancient, forged worlds without permission and leaves without opposition. It is as if the galaxy itself cannot hold him. The Imperium has hunted him for centuries. Some say he works for the ruinous powers. Others claim he is an agent of the Emperor himself. The truth is simpler and more terrifying. Cipher serves no one. He walks alone. His motives are his own, buried in layers of secrets too ancient for mortal minds. He does not age. His armor is too perfect. His weapons too clean. Some tech priests believe he does not exist in linear time, that he slips sideways, not forward, that the man seen on Terra 1,000 years ago is the same man seen last week in the Eastern Fringe, unchanged, unbent, and always, always, he carries a sword. It is said to be the Lion's sword, the weapon of the pre-march himself. A blade thought lost when Caliban fell, but Cipher never draws it, never uses it. He carries it wrapped and sheathed, slung across his back. The Inquisition has speculated for centuries. Why carry a weapon of legend and never draw it? Theories abound. Some say the blade can only be drawn in the Emperor's presence. Others that to unsheathe it would be to end the Imperium itself. And a few, the oldest, the maddest, say the blade is not meant to be used, but returned to the Golden Throne. Cipher's path leads always closer to Terra. Despite being one of the Imperium's most wanted, he moves through its heart with an ease that borders on divine intervention. When captured, and he has been captured, he escapes. Always. No chains hold him. No cage binds him. Custodians have watched him vanish from locked cells. Assassins have aimed their rifles only to find him gone the moment they pull the trigger. He is not a man. He is a question that walks. There are some within the inner circle of the Dark Angels who believe he is the original Lord Cipher, not a title passed down, but the very same figure who served during the heresy. If that is true, then he is over 10,000 years old. Others believe he is a ghost, or a memory made flesh, a warp echo, a punishment sent by the Emperor to remind the First Legion of their sin. But if he is a ghost, he is one that bleeds. He fights when necessary, and when he does, he moves like lightning. His pistols sing like music. His strikes are flawless. He does not fight to kill, but to move forward. Every bullet, every blade stroke is a step along a path only he sees. And in the silence between battles, he speaks to no one, not out of arrogance, but because there are no words for the burden he bears. Cipher is not seeking redemption. He does not wish to clear the name of the fallen. He does not seek revenge against the Lion or the Imperium. His purpose is deeper than justice, older than guilt. He is walking toward something he has seen in a vision, or perhaps something the Emperor whispered to him before the stars went cold. Some believe he carries a message, others a warning, but the most ancient records, the ones even the Inquisition fears open, suggest something more disturbing. That Cipher is the Emperor's final gambit, that when the end times come and the stars begin to die, it will be Cipher who walks into the throne room one last time, not to kill, not to kneel, but to place the blade in his hands. And then only silence, because whatever comes next, no one is meant to know. Not yet. There are truths in the Imperium so forbidden, so corrosive to the soul, that they are buried beneath vaults of silence and sealed with the blood of those who come too close. The Dark Angels call it repentance. The Inquisition calls it containment. But Cipher, he calls it something else. He calls it memory. He remembers Caliban, not the broken husk left drifting after orbital bombardment, not the ruin buried in Imperial lies, but the true world, the forests that reached into the stars, the beasts older than language, the brotherhood of knights who fought not for glory, but for survival, and the lion, the man who emerged from the woods like a ghost with fire in his eyes and silence on his tongue. Cipher had once stood beside him, not in rank, not as a warrior, but as a witness. The role of Lord Cipher was not one of command. It was a responsibility carved into the Order's roots long before the Emperor's light ever touched Caliban, to carry the unspoken truths, to record what could never be written, to remember what should not be known. When a lion was found, when the Imperium came with its thunder and its gene seed and its armies of angels, it changed everything. Caliban was offered ascension. Its sons would become space marines. Its forests would burn. Its order would dissolve. But the old roles they endured, the secrets could not be destroyed, only carried forward. So the title passed on, and with it, the burden. When the heresy erupted, Cipher watched not with shock, but recognition. He had seen the seeds of rebellion long before Horus turned. He had seen it in the faces of his brothers, in the way the lion's eyes darkened with ambition, the way loyalty twisted into silence. The schism within the Dark Angels was not the result of chaos. It was older, more human, born of pride, resentment, and betrayal. Luther, the name echoes through the ruins of Caliban like a curse. Once a father figure to the lion, once the master of the order, passed over, left behind. As the lion took to the stars, Luther remained on Caliban, tasked with ruling a world that no longer fit his master. And bitterness grew, slowly, quietly. By the time the lion returned, Luther had become something else. Not a servant, not a traitor, something worse. A believer. He believed that the lion had abandoned them, that the Imperium was a lie, that the truth of Caliban had been traded away for conquest. And when the fleet returned to their homeworld, fire was the only answer. The bombardment was catastrophic. The world cracked. The fortress monastery was annihilated. What remained of Caliban was absorbed into the warp, twisted into the rock, a drifting fortress stone asteroid that would become the Dark Angel's base of operations. But in the center of the firestorm, something else happened. Something no record fully captures. Cipher vanished. The man who had held the secrets, who had watched the Legion unravel, who had carried the blade. He disappeared in the final moments of Caliban's death, seen fleeing through fire, impossibly untouched, sword slung across his back. The lion was gone. Luther was captured. The Legion was broken. And Cipher became the most wanted man in the Imperium. But here's the truth. He did not flee out of cowardice. He did not run to hide. He ran because he saw the storm still coming. The heresy was over, but the real rot had just begun. For the next 10,000 years, the Dark Angels will hunt him. Every company carries orders to report his sightings. Every interrogator chaplain is trained to extract knowledge from the fallen, but none have caught him. Not truly, because he knows where they'll look. He trained them. He appears across the galaxy like a phantom, never in the same place twice. Reports from hive cities, astropathic echoes from warp storms, a censored ghost in the vaults of the Scholasticus Icona. No pattern, no agenda, only movement, yet the signs are there. Subtle, precise. Cipher walks towards something. Each appearance brings him closer to Terra. Each encounter leaves behind riddles. Data cores wiped. Chaos cults dead before they can summon their gods. Ruins untouched for millennia now stirred into activity. He operates with a knowledge no one else possesses, as if he sees the galaxy in layers, peeling away illusion to reveal the bones beneath. Some believe he is amassing the fallen, that he gathers them in secret, not to lead a rebellion, but to confront the truth, to bring them before the Emperor himself, to ask for judgment, not as traitors, but as sons. Others whisper darker things, that he is the herald of the end times, that the sword he carries will be drawn only once, and when it is, the Emperor will rise or fall. The sword remains a mystery. It matches no record in the current archives. Its pommel bears the iconography of the First Legion, but its craftsmanship is older, too old. Some Mechanicus scholars argue it predates the Great Crusade. Others insist it is the lion's blade, recovered in the last seconds of Caliban's death. And a few, the mad, the hunted, the nameless, claim it is the Emperor's own sword. Cipher never draws it, even when ambushed, even when cornered. He fights with pistols, matched relic bolt and plasma, blazing arcs of precision fire, each shot placed like a signature. He does not kill unless necessary, but when he does, it's immediate, surgical, and then he disappears. Always, prison cells have held him. Once, briefly, even within the walls of the Imperial Palace. But every time he escapes, surveillance fails. Custodians lose time. Vox logs turn to static. It's not just stealth. It's not just skill. It's as if the galaxy itself conspires to keep him free. Some say the Emperor allows it, because perhaps, just perhaps, Cipher still serves him, not as a servant, but as a necessary variable. The Imperium is built on lies, necessary ones, history rewritten, truths buried, the heresies of the Primarchs sanitized into legends, the sins of the chapters whitewashed in blood. But Cipher remembers. He carries those memories like a blade across his back, heavy, wrapped, ready, and someday he will bring them home. There are moments in Imperial history that refuse to die, buried, redacted, forbidden, yet they surface like bones in a graveyard, pushed up by time and rot. Cipher has walked through all of them, never as a witness, always as a participant, a shadow at the edge of catastrophe, a blade that never strikes, but is always poised. The 13th Black Crusade, the fall of Cadia, the opening of the Great Rift. He was there, not in command, not at the head of armies, but present, moving in silence through the chaos, unseen by the dying and the triumphant alike. When the Eye of Terror vomited demons into real space and Abaddon's fleets shattered the Cadian Gate, Cipher passed through the burning wreckage as if immune to the laws of war. When the pylons failed and reality screamed, he stood among the ruins, untouched. Some say he aided the defenders. Others claim he vanished before the final collapse. The only certainty is this. Where reality fractures, Cipher appears. And then he is gone. No confirmations, only afterimages, reports filed and sealed under Inquisitorial edict. Astropaths who saw his presence in visions have since gone blind. Astartes who glimpsed him were struck silent, not by trauma, but by recognition, because some of them knew him, not as an enemy, but as a brother. The fallen, they are the unspoken shame of the Dark Angels. Marines who stood with Luther during the fall of Caliban, not traitors in conventional sense, not servants of chaos, but broken souls who turned against the lion out of grief, resentment, or confusion. When the legions shattered, these warriors were flung across the galaxy by the cataclysm, scattered like ashes on a warp-borne wind. And yet they remain. Some hide, others preach. Some seek redemption in blood. Most are hunted by the Dark Angels. The inner circle, the highest-ranking members of the chapter, have kept this in hidden for millennia. Not even their own brothers are told the truth. The hunt for the fallen is conducted in silence, cloaked as routine deployments or secret crusades. And yet, for all their resources, for all their fury and guilt, they can never catch Cipher. They find traces of him, signs of his passage. Interrogated fallen speak of a cloaked figure who offered no forgiveness, only a choice: follow or be left behind. They speak of strange symbols, older than Caliban, etched into his armor, of a voice that speaks in riddles, of eyes that have seen something they cannot understand. Some follow him, most do not, but the ones who do vanish. Cipher does not lead them to battle. He does not form a war band or a chapter. He offers no sermons. What he gives is a path, a destination, and those who walk it are changed. No records exist of where they go. No psyker can track them. But fragments surface. Heresy purged before it takes root. Chaos rituals disrupted at the moment of summoning. Cursed artifacts disappearing before exterminators can be authorized. The Inquisition has theories, none of them complete, all of them terrifying. Because if Cipher is gathering the fallen, it is not to reclaim the past, it is to rewrite the future. But what is his endgame? It is not revenge. He has had opportunities, more than once, to bring ruin upon the Dark Angels, to expose them, to turn the Imperium's gaze upon their hidden shame. But he never does. When offered the chance to burn it all down, Cipher simply walks away, not out of mercy, out of purpose. There is a plan behind every step, a destination behind every disappearance, and always the sword remains untouched. That is the axis upon which his mystery turns. The blade across his back. It is not ceremonial. It is not symbolic. It is the heart of the storm. During the Indominus crusade, he came closer to terror than ever before. Amidst a galactic upheaval, as Guilliman returned to lead the Imperium, Cipher was captured, intentionally, some suspect, taken to the throne world under Inquisitorial custody, bound, silenced, watched by the finest minds and most loyal agents the Imperium could muster. And still he escaped. No alarms triggered. No doors breached. The guards remember nothing. Vox recordings are corrupted. The sword was untouched. And he was gone. But here lies a fracture in the narrative. Cipher wanted to be there. He brought the sword with him. And though he was stopped, something had changed. Some whisper that he reached the golden throne, that he stood before the Emperor, and waited. No one knows what passed in that moment, if it happened at all. The custodians say nothing. Guilliman does not speak of it, but in the years since, strange phenomena have increased, warp storms behaving oddly, reports of demons retreating before they strike, unexplained silences where ritual should have opened reality like a wound. And somewhere in the eastern fringe, a figure walks again, unchanged, uncaught, still carrying the blade. He is not a hero. He is not a villain. Cipher is something older, a force the galaxy has not yet found words for. He walks not with righteousness, but with inevitability. Every step forward is a page from a book that has not yet been written. But when that final page turns, when the sword is drawn and the secret he has carried across 10,000 years is laid bare, the Imperium will never be the same. The galaxy is a graveyard, not of bodies, but of truths, buried beneath propaganda, rewritten in scripture, lost beneath layers of bureaucratic ash. Every chapter has its secrets, every inquisitor their forbidden texts, but none rival the depth of silence that trails behind Cipher, because his silence isn't emptiness, it's weight. The weight of all the things that can never be spoken, yet are carried anyway. He is not a fugitive in the traditional sense. The Inquisition does not pursue him for crimes, but for fear. Not fear of what he will do, but fear of what he knows. Cipher is a repository of forbidden knowledge. Not just the truth of the fallen, not just the hidden crimes of the Dark Angels, but of the Imperium itself, of the Emperor, of the nature of the warp. There are those who say he knows the Emperor's final words, not the ones uttered before the throne, not the orders given to Dorn or Malkador, but the real last words, the ones whispered in the moment of death, before his body was locked into the arcane machinery that sustains him. No transcript exists, no recording, but Cipher, so the story goes, was there, and ever since, he has walked. Those who have encountered him speak of a presence that feels wrong, but not in a demonic sense. He does not radiate warp taint. He does not cause nausea or psychic disruption. Instead, there is a sense of displacement, as if he doesn't quite fit into the moment, as if he belongs somewhere else, someone else. Time moves around him like water around stone, and yet he acts with urgency, always forward, always toward something. There are accounts, apocryphal but eerily consistent, of Cipher intervening in conflicts that should have ended in ruin. A demon host on Hydros Beta, banished before it could consume the garrison. A chaos fleet in the Mandragora system, sabotaged from within before Exterminatus was issued. A relic vault in the Obsidian Catacombs, sealed again after a theft, but nothing missing. He appears, and then he leaves. Each time, the pieces don't quite add up. Surveillance fails. Witnesses disagree. Some say he was alone. Others swear he had allies. But all of them remember one thing. He did not speak. Not once. Not a word. Just a nod. A gaze. A single step forward. And always, that blade across his back. But if Cipher is gathering the fallen, if he is moving towards some final act, then where is it all leading? What is his objective? What is the meaning behind 10,000 years of silence? The most radical theory, one the Ordo Malleus dares not speak aloud, is that Cipher is not acting against chaos, nor with it, but beside it, not as an ally, but as a counterweight. The warp is not just a dimension, it is a reflection, a mirror of mortal thought and emotion, twisted into nightmare. Chaos is not an invader, it is a shadow, and you cannot destroy a shadow by attacking it. You destroy it by turning on the light. Cipher may be the light, or he may be the flame that burns both sides away. Some of the oldest seers, the kind who are locked away for their own safety, have dreamt of a moment, so precise, so inevitable, that it anchors all of history. A figure in a dark cloak stands before the golden throne. Before him, a sword. Behind him, nothing but ruin. And in that moment, the decision made will either destroy chaos forever or unmake reality entirely. The figure is always Cipher, or what we think is Cipher, because there's one more layer to the myth. What if the man we call Cipher is not one man? What if the role passed on like it did on Caliban? What if the Cipher is a mask, worn by a lineage of secrets stretching back to the Great Crusade? The armor is consistent, the weapons, the silence, but the man? No one has ever removed the helm. No scan has ever confirmed his identity. The few biometric readings retrieved from sites of his appearance suggest genetic heritage linked to the First Legion, but never the same strand twice. What if Cipher is an office? A mission passed from one bearer to the next? Or worse, what if it's always been the same man? Time does not touch him. Wounds do not remain. The warp reacts to his presence not with hostility, but with confusion. As if even demons don't know what he is. As if he doesn't quite belong to this timeline. As if he's been inserted. A variable the universe itself can't resolve. If so, then his sword is not a weapon. It is a key, and keys do not kill. They open. The question is, what does Cipher intend to open? The throne? The Emperor's vaults? Or something far older? He has walked through the ruins of the Webway. He has passed unharmed through Eldar's psychic wards that would vaporize an Astartes. Harlequins have spoken of him in Riddles, calling him the one who broke the pattern and walks between rhymes. They did not attack him. They gnawed and let him pass. Even the Necrons in one apocalyptic moment on Solomase recognized him as something not to be tampered with. He entered a tomb world. No resistance. He left hours later. A shard of the Void Dragon was missing. The Mechanicus believes it was never there, but the stars say otherwise. Cipher moves forward, always, never stopping, never explaining, because he knows what comes next. And for 10,000 years, he has been trying to reach the place where it all began, where all things end, Terra. The path to Terra is not measured in distance. It is a spiritual gauntlet, a tide of blood, secrecy, and forgotten sins. And Cipher walks it not as a supplicant or conqueror, but as something far more dangerous, someone who remembers. He does not seek vengeance. He does not raise armies. He does not declare war. But wherever he steps, foundations tremble, belief fractures, and every silence he leaves behind is louder than 1,000 sermons. In the Imperium of man, where blind obedience is survival, Cipher's silence is a blasphemy that spreads like fire. He moves through war zones without triggering alarms. High lords have seen him and ordered his immediate execution. By the time their orders reach the kill teams, Cipher is already gone, Interrogator chaplains pray to catch him. When they do, they speak of visions, memories not their own, regrets that cut deeper than any blade. He doesn't threaten them. He doesn't even speak. He only looks at them, and they see what they've buried. Some break. Others follow. The dark angels deny all of it. Publicly, he is a traitor, a symbol of shame, to be hunted and destroyed. Internally, they are more desperate. They need him, not to kill him, but to stop what's coming. Because some among them believe that if Cipher reaches Terra, the chapter itself will end. But that belief hides a deeper fear. What if that's not a threat? What if it's the only way they can be saved? Because the sins of Caliban were never buried. They were only forgotten. Officially, the Imperium's records list Caliban's destruction as a necessary act of containment, a rebellion of chaos-corrupted elements. But the truth, what the inner circle hides even from their closest brothers, is that the betrayal was born not from chaos, but from abandonment. Luther was not possessed. He was cast aside. And the fallen did not renounce the Emperor. They questioned the Lion. Cipher knows this. He was there. He saw the fracture before it happened. And in the aftermath, as the Imperium spun a story to preserve unity, he chose exile, not to run from guilt, but to hold on to truth. Because in a galaxy ruled by lies, memory is rebellion. There is no place for someone like Cipher in the galaxy, not among the loyal, not among the damned. Chaos has tried to claim him more than once. The gods know his name, but when they offer power, he does not bow. When they send demons, they do not return. He cannot be tempted, because he has already lost what matters. This is why his journey terrifies those in power, because he carries nothing but the truth, not in scrolls, not in archives, but in action. And when he draws the blade, if he ever does, it won't be in rage. It will be in clarity. A single act to undo 10,000 years of silence. Some say the sword is bound by psychic seals that only the Emperor can break. Others say the blade holds the final command of the Emperor himself, waiting to be spoken. But one thing is certain. Cipher is not bringing it to Terra as a weapon. He is bringing it as a message. But what that message is, no one knows. Because Cipher is not loyal to the Imperium, nor is he loyal to chaos. He is loyal to the Emperor, not the corpse god worshipped by the ecclesiarchy, not the myth entombed in golden silence, but the man, the architect, the dreamer who tried to save humanity from the darkness and was betrayed by his own sons. Cipher walks not for vengeance, not for power. He walks to finish what the Emperor began. There are whispers in the warp, murmurs from the mouths of mad prophets and shattered psychers. They speak of convergence, a point in time when the walls between realities will fail, and all truths will be exposed, when the dead will rise and the gods will fall. They say Cipher will be there, not as a savior, but as a key, because perhaps, at the end of all things, the Imperium doesn't need another warlord. It needs a reckoning. And Cipher, with all his silence, with all his secrecy, is the only one left willing to deliver it, not for revenge, but for truth. The throne world of Terra does not welcome strangers. It tolerates no coincidence. Its orbit is wrapped in kill-sack constellations, its void lane patrolled by the most fanatical fleet ever built by human hands. The ground is layered in sanctified rockcrete, its air poisoned with ritual incense. Billions die each year just to keep it functioning. The Emperor's palace is not a home. It is a wound stitched in gold, a mausoleum too holy to question, too dead to heal. And Cipher is heading there. The Inquisition is certain of it. The Ordo Hereticus, the Ordo Malleus, even the secretive Ordo Chronos, all have reported sightings. None agree on how he moves, but all agree on this. His trajectory is undeniable. Sightings increase in frequency. His actions grow bolder. He has walked to the Black Library, stolen into Blackstone fortresses, vanished from the grasp of the Adeptus Custodes themselves. This is not evasion. It is precision. Cipher is not running. He is navigating. But navigating what? Every story ever told about him leads to a door, one no one can open. It stands at the center of everything. The Emperor's golden throne, the seat of human divinity, the machine that keeps a god alive, or a corpse lit from below. None can approach it without permission. None return unchanged. Those who serve in its inner sanctum speak only in whispers, and what they say is always the same. He is not dead, not entirely. Somewhere in the lightless labyrinth of wires, broken flesh, and psychic fire, the Emperor endures. His thoughts are static. His will is pulse. The Astronomicon burns with his essence. The Imperium kneels before his silence. But deep within, something still watches. Something listens. Cipher believes it, not because of faith, because of memory. There is something in him, a pattern, a design, so deeply ingrained that it pulls him toward terror with the certainty of gravity. Not duty, not redemption, just inevitability. Those who try to stop him find their plans unspooling. Assassins lose track of time. Kill teams discover orders erased from cogitators. It's as though the Imperium itself resists his capture, not out of protection, but necessity. Some among the Inquisition have come to a terrible realization. Cipher might not be an intruder. He might be expected. It is unthinkable. The most wanted man in the galaxy, welcomed by the Emperor? The idea tears at the foundations of doctrine. But there is precedent. In the oldest archives of Terra, there are mentions scattered fragmented of an object carried by a cloaked figure, a weapon of impossible age, a blade tied not to conquest, but to return. What if the sword Cipher carries is not the lion sword? What if it is the Emperor's own? The theory is dismissed by most. The blade was lost during the siege of Terra, they say. Others claim it was shattered. Still more assert it never existed in physical form. But in one vault, beneath the basalt spires of Luna, lies a data fragment too dangerous to decrypt. It bears no sigils. Its encryption predates the Mechanicus. It loops inwards a perfect code, but it repeats a phrase. Deliver the blade. Do not speak. Do not ask. Cipher's silence is not stoic. It is a sacrament, and it is not always silent. There are a handful, only a handful, who have heard him speak, not in sentences, in statements, one phrase at a time, each one delivered without emotion, as if reciting a roll from memory. Everything you were told is incomplete. Caliban did not fall. It was broken. Luther's crime was not betrayal. It was despair. The lion sleeps, but he does not dream. And perhaps the most haunting of all, the Emperor never lied, but he did not tell the truth. What do these words mean? To some, nothing, a madman's riddles. To others, they are a crack in the stone of the Imperium, a fracture so old it looks like part of the design. And maybe that's the point, because Cipher's entire existence is a contradiction, a loyal traitor, a pure exile, a ghost with purpose. And if he succeeds in reaching Terra, then every lie the Imperium was built on will be laid bare. But it will not be Cipher who says them. It will be the Emperor. That is the real terror, isn't it? That Cipher isn't coming to destroy the Imperium. He's coming to wake it up. And what it sees when it opens its eyes will change everything. In the vast architecture of lies that sustains the Imperium, the greatest heresy is not worshipping false gods. It is asking the wrong questions. Questions like, what really happened on Caliban? Why do the Dark Angels erase their past? What if the traitors never fell, but were pushed? Cipher has asked these questions, but more dangerously, he has found the answers. It is why the Dark Angels fear him more than any demon. Why the Inner Circle, the most secretive order within their ranks, treats his name with more dread than the names of the Chaos Gods themselves. Not because he might kill them, but because he might tell the truth. They call it the Hunt, a perpetual crusade waged in shadows. It is their penance, their mission, their curse, to find and capture the fallen, the Marines who turn on the lion during Caliban sundering. Each time a fallen is caught, They are dragged to the rock, imprisoned beneath layers of silence and psychic binding, interrogated until they are broken or gone. And yet, for all their zeal, all their centuries of pursuit, they can never touch Cipher. He is always just ahead, always just out of reach. And he never fights them, not unless forced. When they corner him, he evades. When they fire, he vanishes. And when he speaks, it is not to taunt, but to mourn. "You are not damned," he told one interrogator chaplain moments before disappearing from a sealed vault. "You are lost." That is what terrifies them, not his power, not his blade, but the possibility that he is right, that they are not righteous hunters, but blind men in pursuit of the one torch still burning in a collapsing cathedral. And some, the youngest among the inner circle, have started to ask, what if we're the ones who fell? They don't say it aloud, even thinking it is dangerous. The chapter's foundations rest on denial, on ritual, on a script written in shame. But Cipher never forgot. He carries the sins of Caliban not as a burden, but as proof. The Emperor never erased the fallen. The Imperium did, not because they were beyond redemption, but because their redemption would expose the lie. This is why the Inquisition cannot decide what to do with Cipher. He doesn't fit the model of corruption. He doesn't wield warp power. He is not touched by demons. No records show him speaking blasphemy. He has never been known to murder innocents, consort with heretics, or claim allegiance to the ruinous powers. In fact, most of what he does seems protective. He has been seen intervening in chaos rituals, sabotaging cults, burning warp-tainted artifacts. Entire worlds that would have fallen are intact because of his interference. When questioned by inquisitors, those few who live to remember the encounter, he never asks for thanks, never makes demands. He simply leaves. But there is one constant. He is always heading closer to the heart of the Imperium. To Terra, this trajectory has not gone unnoticed. The lords of Terra may remain silent, but they are not blind. Within the shadow councils beneath the Senatorium Imperialis, his name has been spoken. Plans have been drawn, assassins trained, but none succeed. The Vindicare Temple sent their finest. The round was fired. It passed through where his heart should have been, but there was no heart, only space. The Everzer Temple activated a kill clone within 10 meters of him. The vault was vaporized. Cipher was unharmed. The Calidus Temple disguised one of their own as a high-ranking Adepta Sororitas. She spent 6 months gathering intelligence, waiting for the perfect moment. When she struck, her weapon turned to dust in her hands. And Cipher was already behind her. He whispered, "Wrong question," and then disappeared. What is he? A psyker beyond classification? A warp entity wearing human skin? A living paradox? Or perhaps something the Emperor planned long ago. Some within the Adeptus Mechanicus have scoured ancient STCs, cross-referencing gene codes and pre-crusade algorithms. A pattern emerges, a failsafe, an individual designed not to lead, not to rule, but to reset. A variable built into the Imperium itself. Cipher, not a name, a role, a cipher, meant to be solved. The implications are staggering. If true, then Cipher is not a mistake. He is a contingency, the Emperor's final equation. And the sword he carries? Not a weapon, a command, but no one can interpret it. Not yet, because it must be delivered in person, unsheathed only once, witnessed only by the one who made it. And that one, buried in gold machinery, bathed in 1,000 souls a day, is still waiting, still watching, still listening. And Cipher is coming. The closer Cipher draws to Terra, the more the galaxy seems to convulse, as if the fabric of fate itself recoils at his approach. Or perhaps it's not recoil, it's alignment, because across the stars, events long set in motion begin to converge. Prophecies fragment, secret orders activate, and forgotten odes tremble on the verge of fulfillment. Every faction, imperial or otherwise, has begun to react, knowingly or not. The Eldari speak of a breaker of knots, a veiled figure whose footsteps undo centuries of webway alignment, whose presence confuses a farcers. They cannot see his end. That terrifies them more than any shearing of the threads of fate, not because they fear what he will do, but because they cannot see if he will fail. The Harlequins, those dancers of the laughing god who mock death itself, do not jest when they speak of Cipher. They whisper, they bow, and they do not block his path. Not once. The Necrons, creatures of logic and cold eternity, have registered his movements. They identify an anomaly, an organic signature that defies decay, a timeline presence unanchored by causality. When a Cryptek war host attempted to intercept them in the ruins of a long-dead system, they were rendered inert, not by violence, but by sudden systemic collapse. They theorize paradox, but the Tan remembers something deeper. A smell, a shape, a song from before the stars cooled. They call in the last signal. Even chaos grows restless. The gods of the warp, those monstrous, formless intelligences born from human excess and nightmare, recognize him. They hate him, and they cannot touch him. They've tried. Khorne sent avatars of blood, who found their own blades turned to rust. Sench whispered bargains through daemon hosts and prophecies. Cipher said nothing, and the host screamed itself into ash. Nurgles wrapped past around him like a breeze in a clean room. Slaanesh never even spoke. To them, he is not prey. He is not rival. He is noise, a frequency that does not belong, which means he is immune, or immune for now, and that unnerves them more than any saint. For the forces of chaos understand one thing above all. Every symbol can be corrupted. Every hero falls. Every blade dulls. But Cipher does not seek to lead. He does not command, conquer, or convert. He walks, and he carries the blade. There's fear in that simplicity, because it cannot be bargained with. It cannot be predicted. Even the demon Primarchs, beings of titanic power who once led half of the Emperor's sons into damnation, do not speak his name. Mortar Ion mutters when his shadows deepen, swearing he saw Cipher at the edge of the garden once. Magnus will not acknowledge the possibility aloud, but a Cyclopean eye watches for patterns that bend around a cloaked figure, always behind, always watching. And Fulgrim, in a rare moment of clarity, called him the sin we never committed. But perhaps the one most disturbed is Abaddon, the war master of chaos undivided, the inheritor of Horus's mantle, the breaker of Cadia. He has never fought Cipher directly, and that fact haunts him, because in all his campaigns, in all his Black Crusades, there have been inexplicable failures, communications severed, warp routes destabilized, cult uprisings smothered before they bloomed. When pressed, he blames coincidence, chance. But those close to him, those cursed lords and champions who have seen the shadow slip past the battlefield like wind through ruins, they know the shape of a hooded man. They know the look of silver glinting on his back. Cipher, not fighting for the Imperium, not fighting against chaos, fighting for something else. Something neither side understands. Because Cipher doesn't want power. He doesn't want revenge. He wants the moment when all players are on the board, when the Emperor, the traitors, the loyalists, the gods, the ghosts, and the dead all stand revealed. And into that moment, he will step forward, sword drawn, words unspoken, and the truth, long hidden, long buried, long denied, will cut deeper than any blade. This is why he does not kill, why he does not shout, why he walks, because he knows. The louder the lie, the quieter the truth must be, and when the noise reaches its peak, his silence will be the sound that breaks it. He is close now, too close, and no one, not demon, not angel, not God, can stop him. Time does not flow normally for Cipher. This is not metaphysics. It is not prophecy. It is felt. Witnesses speak of strange echoes after his passage. Vox logs play backward. Chrono trackers lose minutes. sometimes hours. In battle zones where he's been seen, enemies are found dead with no cause. Gun batteries are sabotaged before they're built. Entire engagements are altered, like someone cut a thread and rewove it just slightly, so history shivers but doesn't break. And yet, Cipher is always ahead. He is moving through the Imperium, not around it, passing through sectors locked down for centuries, appearing in the vaults of the Adeptus Mechanicus, walking corridors of black ships. Even the Black Templars, zealots so pure in their hatred of heresy that they purged psychers on sight, once captured him. Once, they chained him with blessed adamantium, sang litanies of flame, but when they opened the stasis field, there was no one inside, only a folded scrap of parchment. No blood, no breach, the chain still sealed. The parchment bore no text, only the imprint of a sword. Cipher's sword is not just a relic, not just a weapon. It is a boundary between what was and what will be. The few who've touched it describe an overwhelming presence, as if time itself coiled around the blade in loops, vibrating with infinite, unspeakable memory. The tech priest who once analyzed a fragment of its sheath, retrieved from a battlefield in the maelstrom, died of simultaneous aneurysms. Their minds didn't snap from chaos. They collapsed under something more terrifying. Truth. This is what makes Cipher more dangerous than any traitor. He doesn't break faith. He exposes it, not with sermons, but with silence. Not with conquest, but with presence. There are reports, deep in the Ordo Xenos, that even the Tyranids avoid him. Not flee, avoid, as if they cannot parse his existence into prey. As if the hive mind, in its incomprehensible calculus, does not know what he is. That alone should terrify the Imperium. For even the uncaring swarm of extragalactic hunger understands boundaries, and Cipher exists outside of them. The closer he draws to the throne world, the more the veil frays. Not the veil between real space and warp, but between stories. Myth bleeds into memory. Dreams pass into data. Those who investigate him begin to see patterns in scripture. They begin to hear the same melody in hymns from 1,000 different planets. They begin to dream of forests, of silver armor, of a hooded figure walking away from fire. It spreads like a disease, but it doesn't kill. It awakens, because Cipher is not coming to make war. He is coming to end one, the longest war the Imperium has ever waged, the war against itself. He has no legion, no chapter, no fleet, but everywhere he walks, others follow. Not just the fallen, not just rogue psychers and radicals, but inquisitors who have seen too much, tech priests who have glimpsed forbidden algorithms, even sisters of the Adeptus Sororitas, unshakable in their loyalty, have, in the darkest hours of confession, spoken his name without hatred. They say they do not know why, only that when they heard his steps, they felt still, not calm, still, as if the storm had held its breath. Some have asked, if Cipher carries a message, why does he not deliver it? But those who understand, even slightly, know the truth. The message isn't the sword. It isn't even Cipher. It's the moment when the blade is unsheathed, when the silence ends, when the Emperor looks up, if he still can, and sees what has come to meet him. Not a son, not a traitor, but the last one still walking, not to be judged, but to remind him of what he tried to forget. The Imperium, as it is now, is unsustainable. It is a rotting empire of 1,000,000 tyrannies, fueled by lies and inertia. Even Gilliman sees this. The pre-march walks again, rebuilding what he can, but even he cannot deny it. Everything rests on an idea that no longer fits the shape of the galaxy. Cipher is not here to fix it. He is here to end it, or begin something else. Something the Emperor tried to build before it all burned. And when he reaches the throne, when the sword is drawn, the question won't be what happens next. It will be what was waiting all this time. Because at the end of all prophecy, all crusades, all silence, Cipher will speak. and everything will change. There are things older than the Imperium, not in years, but in intention, motives buried beneath mountains of doctrine, truths drowned in oceans of blood. Before the wars, before the heresy, before the rise and fall of angels and monsters, there was a dream, not of empire, of unity, and that dream still breathes, somewhere deep within the throne. Cipher has never said it aloud, but he walks like a man who remembers something we forgot, something the Emperor whispered only once, perhaps in the silence before the thunder of war drowned it forever, something too dangerous to write down, too sacred to be trusted to any archive. It lives inside him, carried not in parchment, but in purpose, etched into the curve of his silence, forged into the weight of the blade he never draws, the lion's sword, the emperor's sword, the truth blade, the Cipher key, whatever name it bears, it does not matter. What matters is what happens when it is drawn, not in battle, in presence, because the sword is not for killing, it's for revealing. The story will end where it began, Terra, beneath the golden throne, within the cradle of a dying god. The galaxy will watch and see nothing. The high lords will tighten their grip and feel power slip between their fingers. The Inquisition will hiss its warnings and understand too late that silence cannot be silenced. And Cipher will walk, just as he always has. No fanfare, no army, no absolution. He will walk through cathedrals guarded by men who feel only unease. He will pass beneath statues of gods and see only forgotten men. He will enter the sanctum where only custodians tread. And the custodians, who remember the Emperor not as a deity but as a man, will recognize something they cannot stop. Not fear, but closure. And when Cipher reaches the throne, not with command but with clarity, he will not kneel. He will not speak. He will not raise his hand in war. He will reach behind his back and draw the blade, not for blood, but for memory, because the sword is the last truth, and when it is revealed, so too is everything else. The lies, the heresies, the compromises, all will burn away in the light of what was, and in the silence that follows, the Emperor will decide, not the Imperium, not the High Lords, not the corrupted reflections of his children scattered across the stars, the Emperor himself. And that decision, whether to rise again, to pass on, to unmake, or to renew, will be his alone, because Cipher never came to save us. He came to return the choice. What happens after, no one knows. Perhaps the stars will go dark. Perhaps the Primarchs will kneel in shame. Perhaps chaos will shatter beneath the weight of forgotten purity. Or perhaps nothing changes. Perhaps Cipher, the most wanted man in the galaxy, the exile who never struck back, the traitor who never betrayed, will vanish once more, leaving behind only silence. But the galaxy will never be the same, because it will remember, and that, above all else, is what Cipher has always been fighting for. Not victory, not vengeance, but remembrance of who we were, of who we could be, and of who we must become when the blade is finally drawn. So now you know his name, or at least the shadow of it. Cipher, the fallen angel, the hidden blade, the last unanswered question of the Imperium. He is not a villain, not a savior. He is the silence between two gunshots, the breath before a final revelation, a man unbound by time, walking not to conquer, but to remind that even in a galaxy drowning in war, some truths refuse to die. And when the time comes, when the stars dim and the Imperium's lies crack under their own weight, he will draw the blade, not in hate, but in memory. And when he does, everything will change.